Hello, welcome back everyone. In the last video, we set up this project and built a basic layout for the dictionary web app. Today, we are going to dive into the exciting part, making our dictionary functional by integrating with a dictionary API and enabling search. For this project, we'll be using dictionary API to fetch the words. It's simple to use and doesn't require any authentication. You can see it's a free dictionary API, and this is the endpoint that we're gonna hit. So it's similar as just having a word at the end as an example over here, and this is the response that we get from the API, such as words, phonetics, origin, part of speech, and everything. So this is what we would be expecting when we integrate this API. Let's now build the API call using our Next.js. By continuing our project, we'll create a function to fetch this API from the dictionary API whenever a user searches for a word, and we'll be using hooks to manage the state as in React. Getting into the codes here, build a new folder called utils on the Next.js app and added an api.js file where we have fetched this API with a dynamic word over here. Whenever it fetches a URL, either wait for response and log that data if that's correct. If there's an error, display an error. So we have created this asynchronous function in Next.js to fetch this API endpoint. And what we have expected is once the search button is clicked, we'll call this API and display the result. For current scenario, to visualize it out, I've also created a log, as you can see over here, console.log data, which will also give the response that was in the website on the logs to see and check if everything is working. So that's where I've created this function. Now, utilizing this function within the codes, I've actually imported this function into our main page.jsx in the next app where it is imported. As you can see, it is highlighted as well, and this function is being called whenever there is gonna be a search called or whenever a keyboard enter is pressed. So this function will be called, and if there is no error, it's gonna show the result. But if there is an error, we'll get such kind of errors such as no definition found or sorry pal. So whenever the search component is pressed or like searched, it is gonna handle this out, which is connected with our fetching the word from an API. So going into the search field to give you a quick idea, like what actually happens is within this search component, whenever a user enters an input and that is changed, and either it's like a key event listener for key down, or there is a change and a button is clicked, then this search is triggered, which calls that API. So let's go on to our live app and see this in action. So going on to our application, as we can see over here, if we click on a certain word over here and type it enter, you can see we get a data object over here, which we are expecting from an API. If it's a success, it contains all the word which the end design needs, such as the meanings, the part of speech, synonyms or antonyms, the phonetic words, the source URLs. So all this necessary information is available within the data API. As now it's successful getting the data. So onto your left side, you can see the display where the word definitions examples are on the screen. So this is a creation of a new component here, which renders the results dynamically, and we have utilized Tailwind classes for styling. So it's a meaning component that we have built within the Next.js app. So this component main functionality is to map all the data that has been received from the API into HTML components, such that as you can see, we have like a meanings.map where meanings are passed as props from the parent component here. As you can see, we have a meaning component here where meaning as a props is passed along as the data is responded. So within the meaning, we have a section where we retrieve the part of speech such as noun or verbs. We get its definitions in some span and list classes, and we get the synonyms and antonyms in the paragraph tag. So it's simply just mapping them out. So all of these data responses are mapped into their respective HTML components, and that's what we have actually done. So within this test search, we'll be able to see all these definitions populate, and it works. So we'll stop this video here for today's session. But of course, as the app is just functional, there are few more polishing and testing to be done before we make it ready for deployment. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in the next video.